You have a dream that is at least 2 years old, maybe 3, maybe 5, and in that time, you have thought about it more than almost anything else in your life. You've planned it, revised it, told yourself this month at least 40 times. You know exactly what you want to do. You know roughly how to start. You've watched the videos, you've read the posts. You've had the conversations in your head where you explain your success to people who doubted you, and still nothing has moved. Not because you forgot, not because life got in the way, but because every single time you got close to actually starting, something pulled you back, something quiet, something that didn't feel like fear. It felt more like, not yet. And here is the part that no one is saying. That feeling is not laziness. It is not a discipline problem. It is your mind running a very specific program, one it learned a long time ago, designed to keep you exactly where you are. We live in a world that loves the word lazy. If you're not executing, you're lazy. If you're not consistent, you lack discipline. If you keep dreaming without moving, you just don't want it enough. That narrative is everywhere, and it is almost completely wrong, because the people who struggle most with this, the ones who stay stuck the longest, are not the people who don't care. They are the people who care almost too much. They carry the weight of their unlived ambition every single day. They feel it in the morning. They feel it at night. They feel it when someone else achieves what they said they were going to do. That is not laziness. That is a person at war with themselves and losing because they don't understand what the war is actually about. This video is about that war. 5 psychological mechanisms that keep intelligent, ambitious people from ever becoming who they already know they could be. Here is something your brain does that no one warned you about. When you imagine the future in detail, the version where you've made it, where it worked, where people finally see what you were building, your brain releases dopamine right then, before a single thing has happened. This is called reward prediction. Your mind cannot fully separate the experience of imagining success from the experience of achieving it. So every time you sit in that fantasy, every time you rehearse the life you want, you get a real chemical reward. Not enough to feel complete, but just enough. Just enough to reduce the pressure. Just enough to take the edge off the anxiety. Just enough that the urgency to actually begin quietly fades. And you don't notice it happening. You think you're being inspired, you think you're building vision, but what you're actually doing is spending the reward before you've done the work. Your brain thinks it already won, so it stops pushing. The dream becomes the destination instead of the direction. And the life you're imagining stays exactly where it is, inside your head. Perfect. Untouched. Going nowhere. Here is a truth that will feel personal. You are not afraid of failure, you are afraid of visible failure. There is a difference. Failing privately, trying something quietly and it not working, that's painful but survivable. But putting your work into the world and having people witness it fall short, having someone you know see it, judge it, or worse, say nothing, that is a different kind of pain, and your mind knows this. So it protects you the only way it can, by making sure you never fully try. Because here's the logic, and it is a dark logic, but it is rational. If you never really begin, you can never really fail. You remain potential, undefined, unjudged. Perfectionism is born here, not from high standards, from fear. It shows up dressed as preparation. It's not ready. I need more time. The idea still needs work, but underneath every single one of those sentences is one sentence it won't say out loud. What if I try and the world decides I am not as good as I needed to be? That question has killed more dreams than any lack of talent ever could. This is the segment most people are not ready for. At some point in your life, you became someone with potential. Maybe a teacher saw it. Maybe your family said it. Maybe you just felt it. That private, certain knowing that you were capable of something significant, and slowly, without realizing it, that potential became your identity. It became the most important thing about you, not what you've done, what you could do. And here is the trap buried inside that. Potential cannot fail. As long as you haven't fully tried, you are still, in theory, everything you might become. The writer who hasn't published yet could still be extraordinary. The entrepreneur who hasn't launched could still change everything. The artist who keeps the work private is still, in their own mind, a misunderstood genius waiting to emerge. But the moment you act, the moment you test that potential against reality, you risk finding out there is a gap, between who you imagined you were and who you actually are right now. And some part of you has made a quiet, unconscious decision. I would rather keep the potential than risk losing it. So the identity protects itself. And you stay gifted, promising, and unlived, carrying an imagined version of yourself like a photograph of a place you've never actually been. You've been told your whole life that thinking before acting is wisdom, and it is, until it isn't. There is a point, and most people reading this have crossed it long ago, where thinking about a thing becomes a way of never doing the thing. It feels productive. It feels like movement. You're researching, strategizing, refining the plan, considering the variables, waiting for one more piece of information before you can begin. But here is what is actually happening. Thinking is safe. Action is not. Thinking carries no risk of public failure. Thinking produces no output that can be judged. Thinking keeps you in the room without ever opening the door. The mind, when afraid of what's outside, will generate infinite things to think about so you never have to go there. Analysis paralysis is not a focus problem. It is a fear problem wearing a strategy hat. And the cruelest part is this. The more intelligent you are, the more convincing your reasons for waiting become. A smart person can always find a new angle, a new risk they hadn't considered, a new reason why now isn't quite right. And they will do this indefinitely, exhausting themselves with thought. While the calendar turns on a life that never moves, more information will not fix this. A better plan will not fix this. Because the problem was never that you didn't know enough. The problem is that knowing became a substitute for doing. This is the one that confuses people the most. Because logically, the first step should be easy. It's just one email, one paragraph, one phone call, one post. Something so small it should cost you nothing. And yet you sit there, staring at it, feeling a weight completely disproportionate to the task. Not dramatic fear, just a quiet, heavy resistance. A feeling that says, not today. And it makes no sense until you understand what the first step actually is. It is not just an action, it is a door. And on the other side of that door is a different version of you. Someone who is no longer planning to do this. Someone who is doing it. And that transition, from the person who has a dream to the person who has begun, means leaving something behind. The safety of the unstarted. The freedom of being someone who could. The comfortable, familiar story of potential and someday that you have been living in for years. Even when you want the change, even when you know it's right, the mind will resist because it knows that movement means becoming someone new. And new, even when it's better, still feels like loss. This is not weakness. This is the oldest part of your brain doing exactly what it was built to do. Keep you alive by keeping you familiar. But you are not trying to survive. You are trying to live. And those two things require completely different decisions. So let's say it plainly. You don't have a laziness problem. You have a brain that found a way to feel safe by standing completely still and convinced you the stillness was wisdom. The fantasy feels like vision. It is escape. The overthinking feels like preparation. It is fear with good vocabulary. The protected potential feels like patience. It is a life quietly being deferred, one not yet at a time. And none of it is your fault. These are not character flaws, they are adaptations. Survival strategies that made sense once and now cost you everything. The question is not why you haven't started. You know why now. The question is whether the discomfort of beginning has finally become smaller than the discomfort of watching yourself not begin. That is the only threshold that matters. Not motivation, not readiness, not the right moment. Just that single, quiet shift. When staying still finally hurts more than moving, you'll know when it happens. Most people just wait until it's too late to find out.